Hey folks, well I'm wearing my Oakland sweatshirt in case you can't tell. Go Warriors, Oakland Warriors. I know they weren't doing very well for a little while because Steph Curry hurt himself, but they have won the last 3 games I think in a row. And I'm very happy I was there on Friday night to watch them win. And Curry's going to be back soon enough, if he's not already, and we will be back on top of things. So if someone could raise their hand to make sure that my sound is actually working, that would make me happy. And then we can jump in and start. Oh, thank you guys. All right, great. So we're going to jump in, and you guys are welcome. I'm trying to do this a little more informally, hence wearing my short, sports paraphernalia instead of a dress shirt. And I'm happy if you guys want to type in questions as we go. I won't be able to answer them all, but type away if you want to ask questions. And we'll talk about the theme of tonight is about weight loss. That was kind of a trick to get people to sign up for the class. We're really going to talk about functional medicine, but it's all the same, right? It all kind of comes back around. And I want to talk about, well, I'll make sure I cover all the topics that we said we're going to talk about so you guys are not disappointed. So maybe we'll do that first, and then we can talk about even more interesting things. But the idea, I think, was to look at the reasons why the metabolic rate can get blocked and the reasons why fat burning is such a problem and all that good stuff. But I thought I would do it in a context of looking at tests and in the context of looking at educational materials that I use in the doctor training program. And these are actually materials that are in the doctor training program so that doctors can help teach patients about stuff. And so, I originally designed all these materials for patient viewing anyhow. So we're kind of trying to I don't think I'm stretching it too much, and I don't think it's going to be too complicated for you guys to understand this stuff. And then I have a whole bunch of diagrams that I'm dying to show you all, which are some of the philosophy around functional medicine and some of the sort of educational workups that we use with patients as well. So I'm going to pull all those in. And that is my goal for tonight. Kind of ambitious, but let's see if we can pull it off. And let's see. Let me just find this one other document here. And then we can jump in. Oh, sorry, I thought I had this already set and I don't see it here. There it is. Okay, so when, and this gets to the heart of the whole functional medicine model, right? Which is when you think about things like weight loss and fatigue and depression and these really common symptoms that most of the American population has now, we're thinking about from the bigger picture, how does that really play out? And so there are, in the world of functional medicine, and we talk about this a lot, underlying causes, there are symptoms, and the doctors are trying to work on underlying causes. The patients are concerned primarily with symptoms. And then somewhere in between, there's predictable types of damage that's occurring in the body, and then there's body systems that are affected. Okay, and each one of these lists is relatively short. So I want you should think about this yourself too, if you're taking the time to listen to this talk. What are the underlying causes of health problems, And how many are there? It's a really short list. Here's my list that I've developed. Emotional and spiritual disconnection. That could be trauma, physical abuse, sexual abuse, chronic stress, addiction, mental health problems, whatever it is that, we were exposed to as children or as adults. Dietary, that's a big one that impacts almost all of us. Blood sugar problems, just eating crappy quality food, nutrient deficiencies, thinking that dairy is really good for you, which it's not for most people. Thinking that, gluten is good for you, which is not for most people. GI tract infections. Probably one of the biggest ones that's directly relevant to what we're talking about tonight would be toxins. Okay, so exposure to environmental toxins, heavy metals, and chemicals, which we all have, and how that destroys your ability to burn body fat. So toxins are going to enter into your system and destroy your metabolism, and that's why it's really hard. One of the reasons why it's really hard for people to lose weight. It's one of the sort of hidden reasons why it's hard for people to lose weight, because there's actually damage that's happening from environmental toxins, and so calories in and calories out is not really working. The genetic component, and I want to talk a lot about that tonight, and we're going to see some genetic some examples of the genetic component on these labs in a moment. Okay, I'll show you how to read those. Structural issues, physical trauma, injury, pain, lack of sleep, lack of exercise, tons of medications or surgeries. Dental problems are a big one. Lyme, mold, viral and bacterial infections, SIBO, all these other things that can happen to people. So anyways, there's a list there of underlying causes. And then, you know, what are the symptoms of those? Weight gain is what we're talking about tonight. The problem is that weight gain can be because of gluten. Weight gain can happen, like I just mentioned, because of toxins. Weight gain can happen because of a lack of sleep even. Weight gain can obviously happen because of lack of exercise or too much exercise. Weight gain can definitely happen if you have really bad dental work and you have tons of mercury in your system. Weight gain can happen because of emotional issues, right? So the problem, that we face in this kind of analytical system like functional medicine is that weight gain as a symptom can be caused by any one of these underlying causes. All right, and that's where the lab work really comes in handy, is that when someone shows up and they're overweight or they're tired or they're depressed, we can use the labs to figure out why the heck is that happening in this individual and what's going on that's driving that. Okay, and so then when we talk about body systems, and this is something I'm very proud of that I developed around my 8th or 9th year of practice, was this idea of these body systems that I was treating all those years. I mean, it took me 9 years to figure out this, so maybe, I don't know, I'm still proud of it. It did take a long time. So neuroendocrine, GI, and detox systems are really what I'm working with all the patients. And the question then becomes like, where are you with the labs and which of these systems is broken down? And if we're talking about weight loss and fatigue, for sure, if your neuroendocrine system is broken down, you're going to end up being overweight, okay? And why does that happen? Well, you can look at each of these examples here. So if your adrenals or thyroid are not working right, your metabolic rate's going to be screwed up right off the bat, okay? If your neurotransmitters are not doing well, you're going to crave food and overeat. If your mitochondrial energy is not doing well, you won't be able to burn fat, all right? Under the GI tract, if your microbiome is out of balance, you're going to gain weight. If you have a leaky gut, you're going to gain weight. If you have a pathogen, bacteria, yeast, or parasites, those all cause people to gain weight. You can lose weight with those too, but usually people gain weight, ironically. If you're toxic, as we mentioned before, toxins building up in the system damage your metabolism and cause people to gain weight. Right? If you're inflamed, you're going to gain weight. So again, each one of these systems, the tricky part is that we don't know when you walk in the door. We can't just look at you and go, oh, well, you're not losing weight because you're toxic, or you're not losing weight because your mitochondria are messed up, or it's your adrenals or your thyroid, or it's your gut. You just can't tell. That's the whole point of doing the labs. But I have this thing, and I think that if you as a patient have a basic understanding of how this works, then you have I guess the empowerment, or like you're empowered, to start to take charge of your health a little bit and to find the kind of doctors that you want to work with so you can get these things resolved. So I'm going to show you like a couple of different ways that this plays out in the classes I teach to physicians and in my practice. And we do a basic neuroendocrine assessment, right? That would be this functional adrenal stress profile, where you're looking at cortisol and DHEA levels. We do a series of gut tests. There's many different labs that have gut testing available. This is just one of them here. Okay, looking for parasites, bacteria, and yeast, as well as looking for the metabolic functions within the gut. We can look at some of those other tests if you want in a little bit. And then I'm a real strong advocate for organic acids testing because it shows you so much about metabolism and the brain and whatnot. So for patients that I work with, we do all 3 of these tests and then start to figure out what is wrong and what do we need to fix. And again, how is each of these related to weight loss and fatigue? Let me just go through that real quick again so you can see. So the adrenal hormones, cortisol, when cortisol is out of balance, you're going to store fat in and around your abdomen, which is unsightly and tiring, right? So you get tired and overweight, maybe a little depressed. So cortisol has a huge role to play in body fat problems. You always want to fix that. The gut is the gut. The gut is sort of the centerpiece of all of functional medicine. And so if the gut's messed up, everything's going to be kafooey. So we just, by default, always have to test and correct the gut. This is probably the only thing that every functional medicine doctor would agree on, okay? is that you have to test and correct the gut, and it's super important. And then organic acids, well, you can look at the categories here right off the bat. We're talking about, and this is pretty cool stuff, fat metabolism, carbohydrate metabolism, energy production, all that is, your metabolism, basically. Metabolism, right? Fat metabolism, carb metabolism, and energy metabolism. So that's everything that you need to know about your metabolism and how quickly things are being burned. Are you burning your food up? B vitamin markers, which are essential for breaking down amino acids and making energy, etc. Methylation, which gets a lot of press these days, super important as well to maintain a healthy body fat. And then neurotransmitters, as I said, if these are out of balance, you're going to crave foods. And if you're inflamed and toxic, your mitochondria get damaged and you can't burn fat. Okay, so each one of these systems and each one of these labs shows you why the person may or may not be tired or gaining weight or depressed. And so the types of tests that we do in functional medicine can vary in complex cases, but in more simple workups, we're looking at these different body systems and trying to evaluate where is the biggest problem and where is the person going to get the most benefit. Like if you just even look at this summary page right here for this particular patient, this one's not too hard. Like, the fat metabolism, carb metabolism, and energy markers only have one or two things wrong. But the detox section, you can see, is all messed up. There's all these different markers that are a problem. So right off the bat, you can see, oh, this person probably has a toxicity issue that's driving their weight gain. And we're going to work on that system. Okay, and remember, we try to keep it so simple. It's only 3 body systems that we're talking about. Okay, 3 body systems and a lab test that helps you investigate each one of those systems. And weight gain is always a manifestation of something that's significant, whether it's that you're craving food and you can't eat the healthy food that you should, or whether, and again, I'll show you each one of these, emotional, spiritual stuff causes people to be overweight. Obviously, dietary stuff does, gluten does, GI infections, right? Each one of these can cause weight gain. And so again, we're trying to tease out all these variables. So I want to show you a little bit about the metabolism, a couple of images, and then we're going to look at the labs, okay? So let's take a look at each of these areas. So we've got cortisol we look at first, right, in terms of adrenal hormone production. If cortisol is abnormal, either high or low, you're going to store body fat and not burn it very well. So that's a problem. There is also the gut that we're going to look at, right? If the gut lining is not working well, you're not absorbing well, you don't have a good healthy microbiome, you don't have a good balanced set of bacteria in your gut, then you're going to gain weight. There's a million different studies and reasons why that happens, but it's a common problem, a big and common problem. And then, as I mentioned earlier, if your liver is toxic and you're not being able to clear toxins effectively, you're going to gain weight for a variety of reasons as well. And then the last thing we're going to look at in detail when we get to the labs, just as a little preview here, is the mitochondria. And the mitochondria kind of look like this. This is a sort of artistic representation. Maybe they don't look exactly like this, but they give you a general idea. And they've got the healthy mitochondria over here and then the unhealthy one over here. And we can actually analyze and test the mitochondria. I mean, it's phenomenal that these labs even exist. And it's insane that not every practitioner knows about them. And that's why I'm kind of, at this stage of my life, kind of devoting my life towards trying to teach people about this stuff. Because if you know about this, you can go find a doctor that knows about this. That's kind of my whole thing. You can work with me. I would love it if you work with me because I need patients always, But, if not, find someone near you to work with, okay? And I work with patients over the phone, so you're welcome to sign up and work with me wherever you may be. And if you'd rather work with someone locally, then, hopefully you can find someone that understands this stuff in a reasonable way. Okay, so 3 body systems, 3 labs. And then I want to show you, there's one other thing, because you should know about these, and I've been talking about this a lot in the last year, which is, this is called an ion panel. And the ion panel is a pretty sophisticated workup. It involves a blood test and a urine sample that looks at details of many, many things. And you should just at least know that these things are happening in your body, even if you're not like a biochemist. And so I'm just going to screen through here, and we can kind of focus on the things that are related to weight loss and whatnot too. Okay. So first of all, you look at all the essential amino acids and are the levels low or high, or which ones are low or which ones are high. And each one of these different amino acids does different stuff that's super important, right? And the ones that are directly related to weight gain and fatigue, I'll show you by section here. So, and you should just be familiar with these. It's your body, you know, your body's using these things every day. Your body's using these things just to listen to me right now. So the neurotransmitters and precursors, these amino acids, phenylalanine, tyrosine, tryptophan, glutamic acid, and taurine. These are all really important for your brain to work well. And you can see this person has high levels of glutamic acid and taurine. That's not good. This person has low levels of arginine, which is important for your vascular function, for your cardiovascular system. That's not good either. Okay, high or low is bad. These are glutathione related or detox related. Okay, again, taurine is high. That's not good. And I'll tell you what that means in a second. I just want to show you the sections here first. Oh, and here's detox, the amino acids that run your detox pathways. Look, all 4 of these are high. So this is a blood test. If the amino acids are high in your blood, it means that they're not getting utilized properly. They're circulating and they're not being used. That's not good. Okay? And this poor person, look at the ratios here are all off. So there's a lot of things going on with amino acids. Again, if an amino acid level is high, it means it's circulating in your bloodstream and you can't use it. Okay, so effectively you're not getting to utilize it, right? It seems kind of awkward, right? Because it's high, but it means that you're not able to take advantage of the actual function of that amino acid. And if an amino acid is low, like arginine is here in this example, then you're deficient in that amino, you need more of it. Okay, so it's relatively straightforward to read these. High levels, you need to figure out why they're circulating and not being used. That has a lot to do with most of these with vitamin B6, which helps you break down these amino acids. So if you're low in B6, these amino acid levels will be high. And if the amino acid levels are low, you need that amino acid in a supplement form to feel better. Okay. Ta-da. Then there's this marker, again, you should just know this is like general health education. Many of you may have heard of it. It's called homocysteine. And when it's high, it's not a good thing, okay? And homocysteine implies if it's elevated that you've got a problem with inflammation throughout the body somewhere, okay? And it puts you higher risk for cardiovascular disease and other problems. So this is not good when homocysteine is high. There's a very clear nutritional solution for high homocysteine. It's to give the person B6, B12, and folate, and to figure out why the homocysteine is high, you know, what's causing the inflammation. Wow, look at this one. This is cool. I haven't seen this lab in a little while. We also measure potassium, magnesium, and calcium, 3 really important minerals. In this particular patient, all 3 of them are low. Wow, that's like a disaster. I can't even imagine what that would feel like. That would feel not very good, all right? And then the testing, and you know, a lot of the functional medicine doctors do this, also measures the toxic elements. These are the things that are very bad for you. Aluminum, arsenic, cadmium, lead, and mercury. Bad, 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 and bad, and bad. Okay? You don't want these things in your body. And then the testing also includes antioxidants, right, which are cool. CoQ10, vitamin E, stuff like that. Antioxidant markers, vitamin D. And then this is a section I really want to look at for tonight, okay, which is fatty acids. So you should have a general understanding of fatty acids and how they work in your body, so you know just so you know what kind of food to eat, okay? And so there's 2 big categories of fatty acids that you should be familiar with. One are the omega-3 fats, And usually we think of fish oil in that regard, right? And they have these fancy names here, alpha linolenic. You don't need to remember that. Just omega-3 is fish oil. You can also get omega-3s from plants if you're on the vegan kick, like I am. You can get, flaxseed has omega-3s. You can get them from plants, but most people get them from fish oil supplements, okay? Or from your diet, obviously. Now, this particular patient, low in omega-3s, not a good thing, okay? That's going to cause all kinds of problems with your cells, with your body. And then the second category of fats that are super important are omega-6 fats. And that's your evening primrose oil, your borage oil, or borage oil. And the general thinking for many Americans is that we have a diet that's high in omega-6 and low in omega-3s. So a lot of people try to increase their omega-3s. This particular patient defies that norm, and you can see her levels are extremely low in omega-6. Who would have thought? And this is why we do the testing, because you can't look at someone and say, I think you're low in omega-6. You just can't tell by looking at someone. However, this woman's life was completely changed for the better because I did this lab and I told her, it looks like you're low in omega-6. Why don't we have you take these supplements that have omega-6 in them? And a month later, everything about her life got better. Okay. So again, it's not my amazing and charming personality. It's not how intelligent I am. It's really just the ability to run these labs and to look at the data and to start to make some intelligent decisions on what you should do with your diet and what you should do with supplements in terms of labs. And the basis of functional medicine for all history and all time since it started has been lifestyle changes, which means we want to get people to eat foods in this situation that have omega-3 and have omega-6. But you often find, and this is the case with most of the people that I work with, that there's problems that are genetically based that are not allowing that person, even if they're eating the right foods, to get enough of the nutrients from those foods into their cells. Okay? And so we end up usually supplementing as appropriate to make up for these genetic defects. And I'll show you one clear example of that that's popular now, which is right here. So these are the methylation markers. Most of you have probably heard of this thing called MTHFR, okay? And that is looking at methylation. Now this person doesn't have the problem, but imagine that this person had markers way up here for methylmalonate and way up here for miminoglutamate. That would be a methylation problem, okay, if the markers were high. And there's a genetic problem called MTHFR that makes people at super high risk for having methylation problems. So a lot of the nutrient deficits that we look at, and I'd say in my clinic, like at least half, are genetically based. It's not because people are eating bad quality food, right? It's because their body is just not processing things properly, okay? So let's break it down, and I'm going to go back. Let's see, did I talk about weight gain? Yeah, let's talk about, I'm going to kind of go backwards a little bit, but hopefully this will make some sense. So when you're looking at testing, you're thinking about like, why do I always want to eat tons of carbs? Why do I overeat sugar? Why am I gaining weight in relation to gut-related problems? One of the most common reasons why that happens is because of yeast or fungal overgrowth, which we can measure with this marker here called D-arabinitol. When D-arabinitol is high, like it is with this patient, it means it's a yeast or fungal overgrowth, and you're going to crave sugar and crave carbohydrate. And when you eat one cookie, you're going to want 10, and it's going to be really hard to lose weight because you're going to constantly be craving carbs. Okay, so we go on a killing spree when we find this marker high, and we kill the yeast or fungal organisms. The cravings go away. Person eats healthy, and they can lose weight. So that's a common one that we see. Again, it's called D-arabinitol. When it's high, it means there's a yeast or fungal overgrowth in the gut. And I don't know, we see these high all the time. I mean, it's a common problem. You can have a yeast or fungal overgrowth because you've been on antibiotics or because your diet's been messed up for a while. It's a bunch of different reasons. And then let's look at I want to try to find real examples. Let me see. Let me look at this other one here. Maybe we'll find it over here. So you guys can actually see what the labs look like when these things are messed up. Oh yeah, here we go. That wasn't too hard, was it? Okay, so remember we said toxicants and detoxification. And what does that really mean? Well, it means your liver is out there every day just trying to make the world a better place, and your poor liver. And we should all just say a prayer for the liver. It's just like every drink of alcohol you ever had, every sip of coffee you ever had, every toxin that you inhaled, every medication you ever took, everything you ever did that had to be excreted from your body had to run through your liver. So your liver has phase 1 and phase 2 pathways. Phase 1, the cytochrome P450 pathways. Phase 2 are these conjugation pathways. So your liver is working all the time to grab toxins and excrete them. Day and night, this is happening. And the more junk you put in, the harder your liver has to work. And a lot of these toxins are, in a sense, sort of hidden because they're in the air and food and water that we're exposed to. And you're not really necessarily thinking as you're breathing in a deep breath of diesel fume that your liver is going to have to deal with that, but it does. Okay. And so because we live in a really toxic world, many people have toxic livers. And here's an example of how that shows up in a lab. And the more toxins your liver is struggling with, the less it can burn fat. In fact, I read this the other day, and it is depressing but true. One or two alcoholic drinks will prevent your liver from burning fat for several days. It's not necessarily the calories in the alcohol that's so crippling. As much as the calories, or probably even more so, it's the damage that the liver causes, that the damage that the alcohol causes to the liver. And the liver is now consumed with trying to metabolize and deal with all this alcohol, and it can't burn fat while it's doing that. So here you go, toxicants and detoxification. These are the markers here. And they have fancy names: 2-methylhipurate, orotate, glucarate, alpha-hydroxybutyrate, pyroglutamate, sulfate. Each one of them is a different pathway, and you can get into the technical stuff. It's actually kind of interesting, but we probably don't have time tonight. But the worst thing that can happen is your sulfate is low, with it, this person has, and these other markers being elevated mean these liver detox pathways are working extra hard and starting to fail, and the sulfate pathway has already failed. So this is a person whose liver is not able to get rid of toxins and not able to burn fat either. Your liver is supposed to burn fat for fuel and do all kinds of other things that are wonderful. If it's distracted and injured, basically, because of a toxin overload, then that whole mechanism of fat burning is not going to work very well. Okay? And then interestingly and ironically, when you burn fat, you release toxins that are stored in body fat, and that's even harder on the liver, if you can believe that. Okay, so that's one. Let's see, I want to find real examples, so hang on, let me skip through a couple other tests here. Well, and remember, any kind of parasite, bacteria, or yeast causes inflammation in the gut, and then functional medicine doctors just blame everything on the gut. So weight gain, depression, toenail fungus, whatever your problem is, we're going to blame it on the gut. So you got to get your digestive tract working really well. So this person had a parasite, and it's just like a prerequisite for being healthy is to make sure your gut's working well and your microbiome's in good shape. Okay. So here's another example from a different patient. These are all real people, by the way. These are actually all my patients. So here we go. This is energy production. So your body needs to make energy, and it does that by burning up carbohydrates and fat primarily. When these markers are high here, it means that your body's breaking down. I said that wrong. It means that your body's unable to metabolize and make energy from proteins and fat effectively, okay? From proteins, fat, and carbs. So the higher that these markers go, some of these are pretty high in this particular patient, the bigger a problem you're going to have in terms of making energy. So these are, again, energy production markers, and they're a direct reflection of what the mitochondria are doing, which I can show you here. Let's see. We talked about the mitochondria already. I showed you a picture of the mitochondria, right? But there's a better one here for this purpose. There, this guy. Okay, so here you are. You're taking fat, carbohydrate, and protein and trying to make energy in the citric acid cycle. And this part of the lab shows whether you're able to make cellular energy or not. This particular person, every time you see a high mark, there's a block to energy production. And they had like 6 or 7 of them, right? So this person is unable to make energy. That means you're going to be tired and you're going to not be burning fat very well. So you're going to end up being fat and tired. So again, here are these markers. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of these are high. There's 6 different blocks to this person's ability to burn body fat for fuel. I mean, 1 block maybe you could overcome. 6, no way. This is, not going to work. So there's various supplements you can take that fix this, right? CoQ10, amino acids, magnesium, and we have to figure out why this is happening. That's the whole point of functional medicine. So you go back and you say, okay, well, we know this mitochondria are damaged, and we're going to fix them, and we're going to give you the nutrients to fix them. But we also want to figure out what's the underlying cause. So we're not just giving you a ton of supplements and you stay addicted and on these supplements forever. We're actually figuring out what's driving that. And that's, again, where the lab work comes into play, is you're looking for the underlying cause. What is the underlying cause of this problem? Why did this happen in the first place? And you can see, I'll blow this up a little bit. You can see each of these nutrients is key in certain areas. There's your magnesium, right? There's your amino acids. Each one of these little steps requires a bunch of nutrients. And if the nutrients aren't there, then you're going to get these backlogs on the lab, and you see these high markers. These high markers are representing nutrient deficiencies and your ability to make energy, okay? And then there's one that's super important. Let me find a good example of it. Like triple important for fat burning. Let's see. Oh, here we go. Look at that. How convenient. So this is fatty acid metabolism itself. You're measuring the body's ability to take fats and to turn them into energy. And when these markers are high, that system is not working well. This person has blocks to fat burning. It's a really simple solution. You give the person carnitine and B2, and that metabolism of fat will kick back into gear. And then you figure out why they're low in those, right? So there's obviously dietary interventions and all this other stuff. But you can actually measure fatty acid metabolism. Can I take fat and burn it up for fuel? Looking at these 3 markers here. I mean, it's pretty cool that you can even do these tests, right? This particular test, this ion panel, it's like $700-800. You can do separate organic acids tests for $300 or $400. It's not cheap, but for the amount of information you get, I think it's really reasonable. You're getting so much information at one time, and you don't have to do the tests super often. You don't do them like every day. Maybe people do them like once a year or something like that. So let me just show you on the carnitine side here. Like that. So here's, maybe I can blow it up. There we go. That's better. I think you can see that more clearly. Okay, so here's your little mitochondria guy. Here's your fat. Okay, here's the lipoprotein. That's like a, fat carrier molecule thing. But here's your fat, and the fat's supposed to go into here where it gets burned up and comes out as ATP or energy. And carnitine is responsible for doing that. And if you don't have enough carnitine in your body, then that fat doesn't get burned up for energy. It goes this way, and you end up with high suberate and adipate. And that's what they're measuring on the test. So again, the fat's supposed to go this way towards energy. If the fat goes that way and it's not getting burned up, you're going to have a bunch of extra fat on your body, right? And you're going to have adipate and suberate levels that are high. And that's exactly what's on the lab. Again, it's just amazing you can measure this stuff. You see adipate and suberate in this person are high because remember, the fat should be going this way to get burned, and it's going that way to adipate and suberate. So when these are high, you're not using fat. And then people are overweight and tired. And you take enough carnitine, and it'll reverse that and figure out why the carnitine's messed up in the first place. So we talked about fat burning, we talked about energy production. I can show you an example of neurotransmitter stuff. Here we go. These are the neurotransmitter markers, and they're roughly broken down into two categories. There's ones that are stress related, and there's ones that are inflammation related. If any of these markers are high, then you're going to be depleted or low in your neurotransmitters, and that can cause endless food cravings. You just are hungry all the time. You eat a really good meal and you're still hungry. Okay, so that's a brain mechanism there. And lots of things can mess up your brain. Could be emotional stress, could be some kind of inflammatory problem. Lots of things can mess up the brain. And let me just show you, I think we covered all the major subjects. Fatty acids, right? We talked about that. Energy production, the brain. I'm going to show you one more brain example just so you can see another one. And then I'll show you one or two adrenal examples, and you can see those too. Not that you need to learn how to read these, but you should be familiar with the general concept that this stuff can be tested. That's all. So here we go, another neurotransmitter section. That marker is on the high side, that marker is on the high side. These are neurotransmitter stress-related markers that are abnormal. Okay, so that person's very likely going to crave a lot of food or just compulsively overeat. Let me just show you one more here. Oh, this is a good one. Okay, so, and this is the opposite, right? This is, in this case, the neurotransmitter marker is really low. That's even worse than it being high. High is bad, low is extra bad. So low vanilmandelate, you have really low levels of epinephrine and norepinephrine, and that's going to make you just physically exhausted and cause all kinds of problems, okay? So again, we're thinking about when you want to take it back and you're a little confused and overwhelmed, we always go back to the basic model. And we just looked at and talked about how mitochondrial energy can cause weight gain and fatigue. Neurotransmitters can cause weight gain and fatigue. Talked a little bit about gut bugs like yeast overgrowth. Parasites can cause weight gain and fatigue. Toxins can cause it. Inflammation can cause it, right? All of these different issues. And again, you look at these labs, and not so that you become an expert interpreting it, but you get the general idea of how the testing works and why it's important. And these tests can reveal so many different problems. It's just like, it's really just quite incredible. Let me show you, I'm going to show you one other thing here. Yeah, I think it's here. Just because this is really interesting. Now, this is a different person. We haven't seen this one yet, but you're going to see a pattern that's similar to what we saw earlier. So in this particular person, the omega-3 essential fatty acids are fine. See, they're all normal. They're all in the green zone. This person is fine with their omega-3s. So even though they may be depressed and overweight, they don't need to take fish oil. But what's happening with their omega-6? The last one of these we looked at, remember they were low in both 3 and 6? Low, 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 low. Very low omega-6. Does this person need omega-3? No. Does this person need omega-6? Desperately. Okay? And when these fatty acids are low, everything in your body gets all kafooey because they're essential for inflammation processes, and they're essential for prostaglandin production. They're essential for immune function. They're essential for neurotransmitter. They're just essential for everything. That's why they call them essential fatty acids, I guess. They're not kidding with the name. They're essential, okay? They're not like kind of important fatty acids. They're essential fatty acids. And again, you just can't look at someone and say, oh, I think your omega-3s are fine, but your omega-6s probably aren't. In fact, if anything, the assumption is usually the opposite, right? That the 3s are going to be the bigger problem. So it's really important to do the testing and to start to understand this stuff. Let's see. And not everybody has every problem. Like, remember we saw that really horrible yeast marker on the other person? This person doesn't have any yeast at all. So you're not going to treat it. There's nothing there, right? And I think the amount of money that I see a lot of people spend on supplements, you could just save all that money, stop doing that, and wait and save up until you can afford a bunch of tests so you can be more targeted with what you're doing. Okay. And so, the average patient I work with spends probably between $400 and $1,000 on labs. My time is kind of expensive. They spend maybe another 1,000, 2,000 bucks talking to me over the course of a year. So, a typical case probably costs to really go through a complete workup. It's going to cost you at least $2,000, $3,000 to get the lab, to talk to a doctor, to get all the supplements. It's not cheap, I know that, but if it's your health, and if you can just, kind of fund, save money gradually or whatever to make it work, um, then I think it's really well worthwhile. So we talk about that. Let's go through. I'm going to do one more thing. Oh, we didn't look at too many adrenals, so I'm going to look at a couple more of these adrenal labs. You can see how that works. So the adrenals are really important, right? They help regulate energy levels, and they're very much involved in metabolism and fat burning as well. And so here we're looking at cortisol. And this particular person has very low cortisol levels. In the morning, you're supposed to be around 20, and they're down at a 5. At the noon hour, you're supposed to be at 8, and they're at a 2. Total cortisol is supposed to be around 40, and they're at a 9. So this is a stage 3. This is low cortisol. DHEA should be around a 5 to a 10, and it's at a 1. So low cortisol, low DHEA means that the adrenals are not doing well, and which we call the HPA axis. The hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis is not doing well. Okay, and this can lead to a lot of problems. And I'll just show you some images on that. All right, here. Where'd it go? I have my favorite one here I always use. There it is. So when we're under stress, your brain, your hypothalamus, your pituitary tell your adrenals to make a ton of cortisol. That goes over and inhibits or changes the balance of thyroid hormones as well. So when you're stressed, your adrenal hormone levels go up and your thyroid hormone levels drop at the same time. And if you're stressed enough for long enough, that becomes like a permanent feature of your life. You have high cortisol and low thyroid hormones. And eventually, if that goes on for long enough, the adrenal hormones start to drop, and people get sicker and sicker and more tired and more weight-related issues. And so when we're doing these labs for the adrenals, we're trying to see where in this process are you, if you're in this process at all. Is your cortisol level high? Is it low? Is your thyroid hormone production good, or is it dropping? Right? And the thyroid hormones are really important for weight, obviously, because they're controlling your metabolic rate. And so we can kind of do a little blow up here, and you'll see there's 2 different super important thyroid hormones called T3 and T4. And what happens when you're stressed or inflamed is T4 can get converted over to something that's called reverse T3, which is bad. Instead of it going down here and making more T3, you get your T4 going over to reverse T3. And we really don't want that to happen. So it's very common for people to be stressed and for them to have a low level of T3 because of this problem with T4 going over to reverse T3. And that causes a whole host of metabolic problems. And what the thyroid is doing as its master role in regulating metabolism is it's regulating and controlling your mitochondria. Remember them? They're the ones that are dealing with the fat burning. So if the thyroid hormones are low and the thyroid is sluggish, your metabolic rate is low, your mitochondria aren't burning fat, and you can kind of see how that all ties in, right? So low thyroid function means that the mitochondria are not going to get the proper direction that they need to make all this work. Okay, so if we're going to list all those out as like a quick little summary, I'm going to do it by looking at the labs, okay? So number 1, reasons why you can be exhausted and overweight: adrenal exhaustion, adrenal burnout, adrenal fatigue relates to cortisol. Number 2, we didn't talk about this a lot tonight, but digestive problems are at the center of many functional medicine cases. So again, the only thing that every functional medicine doctor agrees on is we got to test and correct the gut. Okay, so we always do that. Very important. And then within the organic acids section, remember, there are measurements for fatty acid metabolism, and you can correct that with carnitine. Measurements for energy production, Can correct that with things like magnesium and CoQ10. Measurement for neurotransmitters, which you can use amino acids to repair that would lead to cravings. And if you're overly toxic, right, your liver's not going to be burning and clearing fat very well. So we need to make sure that the liver's working well. And if the liver's not working well, we give these sulfur-containing amino acids like N-acetylcysteine to build up the liver. And then we saw this with one of the patients. You can have a bacterial or yeast overgrowth. Here's a yeast overgrowth that would lead to food cravings. And so, the summary of all this, I'm going to wrap up now and let you guys get back on with the rest of your day or evening here, is that for weight gain and fatigue, and it's like for so many things in functional medicine, you really have to look at all the systems. If you do a partial exam, you just don't know the whole picture of what's going on. I mean, it's just better to do a complete evaluation, right? To see, is the neuroendocrine system playing a role? Is the GI tract playing a role? Or is there a toxin-related component? Okay, and if you get all this assessment done, and there's certainly within functional medicine many more labs you can do than what I'm talking about tonight. If you get this basic assessment done, usually it lays out where the major problems are. So for around $500 to $1,000 worth of lab work, you can get a pretty good impression about what all the variables are and how that's all going to be driven. Okay, so hopefully this is a good introduction for you guys to get a little more familiar with the functional medicine model. And I hope you have a great rest of your evening. And I look forward to doing another one of these in a month or two. Okay, take care, everyone. Bye for now.